Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Hog Talk Podcast. Coming to you live from the Sterling Soap and Roastery Studios, part of the Believe and Buzz Radio Network, where you can hear us each week on 106.7 Buzz 2 in Central Arkansas. All live shows are presented to you by Arkansas Brewing Company in downtown Ozark. I am Porter Hayes, and alongside me, as always, is Adam Hall. And on tonight's show, we'll talk some Razorback off season, some budget cuts per se, and at 6:35 we'll have Travis McClain, head coach of Mount Vernon High School. He is also a co-host of the Pick Six podcast. Last week was making some interesting comments about the state of Arkansas football and Sam Pittman when it comes to recruiting. So looking forward to that at 6:35. But also, Adam, we touched on it together about NCAA March Madness has announced that they are releasing their game, and I had seen where it won't come out till 2028. So we are getting a college basketball game, and there's already people calling for a college baseball game. So I'm sure it's coming, but do you think the hype for the college basketball game will be the same as the hype for the college football game?
No. The college basketball game, previously was really good. It was popular. It never reached the popularity of college football. It's one of those things people want it. I think it's one of those that they want because it's been gone for so long, because it's been gone even longer than football was. I'm ready for it. I hope it's different than NBA 2K and all of that. It kind of seems like the same, game year by year. And that happens especially when they use the same engines and stuff like that. So you hope that 2.5, 3+ years that they'll, have a lot of tweaks and adjustments and, something to make it its own. So it doesn't just seem like a carbon copy of NBA 2K or any of the other ones. I'm ready for it. Why not? We've only had NBA basketball games that have been out for so many years, so it'll be nice to have a change of pace and have these college players in it, especially now that with NIL you can have the names on there.
Because I believe what was the one with Blake Griffin was the last one that they come out with, and it for its gameplay and the graphics at the time, and of course being able to play Arkansas, and it was a really good game. And I was one of those that for the longest time, until I upgraded my console, I would keep the 360 around just so I could get the 2014 or the 2010. But I like the college baseball game. I believe it was either 06, 07, the college baseball. I don't know if it was MVP baseball college or whatever the name of it was, but I mean, that was a good one too. I mean, I could just imagine now with the graphics and Omaha and everything going into that. I mean, you would have year round, you could play your favorite college game. I think it would be really cool to come out with, but that was another thing. But moving on, there's been a lot of chatter the last couple of days about budget cuts and revenue sharing, and now we're really kind of seeing the opposite end of the effects of it. And I don't know really, I hadn't heard too much about it, but when you hear the likes of Kevin Trainor being let go from the University of Arkansas, and don't know any of the details about it, so I don't want to go too much into it without knowing all the details of what happened. Was this a mutual thing, or was this because everything? And also, who's next? I mean, there's talk about more people that are being let go, but it will lead into our second segment of this NIL and revenue sharing. And you're seeing people. I mean, Kevin Trainor is a staple at Arkansas, and for him to no longer be at the University of Arkansas, I mean, it kind of stings a little bit. But you're like, you kind of caught off, like you can't believe that. Okay, it's happening this fast.
When you said it to me this morning, I mean, I hadn't heard anything. It's something that's been kept under wraps, if you will. I mean, obviously it's out there for these people to know, but like David Basil put a couple days ago, even on his on his Twitter that he is the current president of the National College Sports Communicators. And, he's at this level nationally. And after 30 years, 3 decades, you just cut it off.
Yeah.
And, there's some other tweets out there about it. And it's kind of like you're telling me that after this many years that you can't find his salary somewhere else in the budget.
No,
Like,
that the raffle. Remember we talked about the
well, yeah.
raffle. I mean, one of those would have covered it.
Well, and then, that comes down to what plans does the Razorback Foundation have with that money?
Yeah.
And like we've talked about, because the GM still hasn't, he's going to be getting his staff in, whether it's been coaching shortages, whether it's been other staffing shortages, whatever the case may be. I mean, that's why I think that Razorback, that raffle, I think now with all this stuff that's happening, GM's looking for a staff. Kevin Trainer and others being let go, I'm just kind of like, that's exactly where your raffle money is going, in my opinion. Maybe it ends up going other places, but right now you can't tell me otherwise when you already have these positions that you have open. And, I look at it like, is it because they come out of different departments, different pool? It's kind of like people that complain when, say, your city spends X amount of dollars on water slides, but they won't spend X amount of dollars on your poorly developed, water infrastructure.
Yeah.
They come out of different pools. And so it's like, is his just not in that boat? I don't know. I feel like you can move stuff around. I'm not there to make those decisions.
And it could be, you bring up a good point about the foundation. I mean, there was talk of maybe that's what's going on. Maybe they're going to move him over to the Razorback Foundation. We don't know all the details of what's going to happen. So, we could be up in arms about this whole thing, and then all of a sudden he pops up and he's with the Razorback Foundation, and then all is lost. But still, it's one of the things, and he's the mediator for the SEC Media Days. So I mean, he is an integral part of, and I believe he was the president, or he is the outgoing president. I've seen a lot of posts about him passing the gavel to the newest president. So great guy. I mean, when we had Hunter Yurchek on the podcast a few years back, he was very, he was nice to talk with. He got Hunter on and all that. So, and he's a big volleyball fan like we are. So, you have these connections and you talk to these people, and you hate to see, and amongst other people, there's a lot of other people. So I know we talk about Kevin, but there's other people who lost their jobs. And I don't know if this is how much this is happening in other schools, but you hate seeing this because we are sports fans. We do these things and talk about sports on our podcast. And then you look at the other side of it and you're seeing people losing their jobs now because of it. It's one of those situations where, you feel for the families that are losing their jobs over this stuff, because everybody's counting on this 20.5 million to save the football program. You're giving these college kids all this money, but yet people that's been there 10, 15, 20, 30 years are losing their jobs because of it.
Mm-hmm. I mean, and a lot of it just comes down to, you can poor money management. I mean, I get the operating costs and whatever else go up, benefits go up and things of that nature, but it's kind of like you can be fiscally responsible and control your expenses elsewhere. And I don't understand it, especially somebody that's meant so much to the school, to the athletic department for so long. And like you said, we don't know what all went into it. Maybe it was something that mutually agreed to part ways. Maybe it was something in the sever. I mean, we don't really know. I would like to hear Kevin's side of things, and not even from the, he doesn't have to air out all the dirty laundry. And just, whether it's you put out a statement or whatever, I just would like to get a feel for if he was blindsided by this. Was there any communication on it or conversations on it, and go from there?
Yeah. And more will come out with it. I mean, I heard it on the radio this morning, and then they were talking about it at noon today. So I know it's a hot topic, and more will come out. But um, it's one of the things because Arkansas is in a tough spot, and what they have to do or what's expected of them when it comes to catching up to the Ohio States and the Alabamas and Michigans. So at what cost, though? That's what I really want to know is, are the bigger schools having these problems, or they have enough money that they're fundraising that everybody's getting to keep their positions and they're building their programs? Like, if this is how this is in year one of this revenue sharing, where are we going to be at next year? Where are we going to be at the year after next? You're talking about Kevin Trainer, and then what about you go to the SIDs? An integral part of the sports information department. What happens to all these positions where they're needed and they just start cutting them loose? I mean, if they're and it should send shockwaves. No matter if he goes to the foundation or what happens, it should send shockwaves through any athletic department of, whoa, this dude 200-year checks right hand man. If he's not safe or they let him go, what are other people at the University of Arkansas feeling right now in any kind of capacity of employment there?
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's one of those that nobody should feel safe in this day and age. I mean, whether it's they're going to go find somebody cheaper or just cut the position as a whole, there's a lot of questions that circle it. But, this right here, the money is the money, but how is it being allocated within the program? And that's something that we've talked about, especially like with the raffle and the things that the Razorback Foundation controls. We're not going to have oversight in that. We're not going to be privy to that for the Razorback Foundation, be a nonprofit and whatnot. And I think that that's how they're going to get around, like with the Razorback raffle, of us not knowing where that money's going. We're just going to have to trust what if they put anything out saying, hey, your money has gone to this or your money has gone to this, and we just have to take it with a grain of salt. We're not going to have any of that information. It's kind of like, the same thing with the NIL. It's not going to be, we're not going to be privy to that with Freedom of Information Acts due to Arkansas state law. So really we're at the only thing that I think we'll end up getting any access to that we don't already is going to be when the revenue sharing kicks in tomorrow, just to actually see what is going to the different programs, the different teams, because we're not for certain. Everything's still rumors at this point on what program is getting what amount of money and et cetera and all that. So it's one of those, we have all these questions, we want all these answers, and we're not going to get a whole lot of them.
Yeah. No, and when you have the governor supporting this and, making it where, like you said, you can't get any answers. It's like, but to me, it's like, why would you go to that level? I don't know. And maybe, or anybody else, and maybe Travis will know when we talked to him about the NIL situation. How many other states get their legislative involved in making these FOIAs where you can't see it or you can't even request it and they'll be denied? That's what I would like to know. Is this something that's happening in more places than we realize? And just because it's Arkansas and we keep track of Arkansas, we're seeing it and noticing it. But that's another thing. And then you have like this comment right here, Gundy at OSU took a $1 million salary reduction to help his program. I've heard other programs doing that, but then you also see the ones that are like, look, these players are getting paid now. It's a different world. Why take money out of my pocket when we're paying these players that might not be here next year? I'm going to be here. I'm trying to build this program. Why should I take my money and give it to somebody who, they'll take their money, but you're seeing these opt-outs at 4 games and these guaranteed, look at all the gold rush that's going on at Texas Tech right before the deadline, which is today, of the new bargain agreement or whatever you want to call it. And so tomorrow does start that, the no more of all of this stuff. And we might be going back to the Pony Express days and the McDonald's bag days. And so,
and with that too, I mean, it's like I talked about this a little bit last night. I even talked about it with a coworker today, because he's in this older generation that, he remembers obviously the SMU days
Mhm.
and how everything was, which we all do still, pre NIL, pre transfer portal, pre revenue, pre all this. So now with everything that, being reviewed by a third party, for the NIL deals themselves and the payments and all this, then we're adding on revenue sharing, and we don't know to what extent this third party, like how strict they're going to be with approving and denying. They've kind of let it out to be that essentially you need a business plan. You need to prove that this player is going to do X, Y, Z for the money that he's being paid, whether that's signings, whether that's events, TV ads, commercials, social media, whatever. They've kind of got to have a business plan in place to show that. Okay, so you start either rejecting them or approving them, whatever. Well, the people that want to get around that, they don't want to do that. We're going to go back to the McDonald's bags full of cash. We're going to go back to the envelopes in the locker after the games. We're going to go back to these things that are done behind the scenes that nobody's privy to, but people know that's going on. So now with revenue sharing, with NIL, and then we're going to open up this back, we're going to open back up paying kids under the table. We've now added another layer of money that these kids are going to be getting. So it's kind of, the rich get richer in a sense, because adding revenue sharing on it, that's just guaranteed money. And so we're giving them even more money, in my opinion, with the revenue sharing, the NIL, and then the backdoor deals that are going to be happening. And like I've said, I am all for these players getting paid within reason. And like we talked about with the NBA draft and such, we're seeing firsthand the attitudes of these players that are getting this money so early on. And I think it's only going to get worse before it gets better.
Yeah, and there is some, before we had to break, there is some, additions. There is some good news. I mean, Arkansas did flip the 3-star prospect from OSU to Arkansas. But what comes with that is you see 3-star prospect. You're talking about, the names that are being mentioned and people that could be coming to Arkansas. They're 3-star players, or you spending $1 million for somebody who's a 3-star player. And I mean, the rankings is the 54th corner in the class and the 619th player in the 247 composite. So, and the 87th player from Texas. So, I mean, yes, you're getting players, but then Arkansas is known for that. That's big for them.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're getting the revenue sharing and you're getting these players come in, is this going to do it? What I mean, because this is where it comes into the development. Do you trust your staff to develop these players? Now, T. Will's done a really good job at Arkansas. So, I mean, there is promise there, but just as well as I do, you bring somebody that needs to be developed. How much now on the coaches are, well, do we go balls to the wall? Do we go all out to really make this kid a great player? And then you see what happens, like a Desmond James shows out and then all of a sudden he's gone.
Mm-hmm.
And it is tough.
It sucks. And I mean, like we're going to get into in this next segment, one of my biggest issues with this, because I've been very vocal about where I stand with high school recruiting, and it's no knock on the players, but I think that there's more to be gotten from the transfer portal. I think it's more important just because a lot of the players don't stay. So you're doing things that could potentially cause NCAA sanctions in the long run. And you're doing this for what? For your team to go 6-6, for your team to for this player to transfer out in 2 years. It's just, I don't think the risk is there. It's not worth it.
Well, and then it's football.
Mhm.
It's not like basketball where you have somebody like Coach Cal that's getting 4-star, 5 stars, or transfer portal guys, or the top player in the nation can come in and average 20 as a freshman. You're in a sport where a kid in freshman, unless he's like a generational talent at quarterback, running back, wide receiver at the talent position. You know, if you develop this kid and then he leaves, now you're having to redevelop somebody else who's not ready. You can't just, unless you get a grab out of the portal, you're not just replacing this kid with the level playing field. So again, it's like this kid leaves and you've done all the legwork. He leaves and now you're in a worse off position because who are you going to replace him with? What is your and that is what Arkansas has lacked of for years is depth. They've had some great talent, but they haven't had any depth. And then you see that at the end of the year when you go through that gauntlet, the 5, 6, 7 games of, Auburn, Mississippi, Ole Miss, Auburn, Texas A&M, Missouri, Texas, LSU to end the season, and they go 2-5, 3-5, or 3-4 going down the stretch, And I do feel for Arkansas because it's the fact that, you're getting what you can get and you're developing and then they're leaving because the money is better somewhere else. But you were the first one to have a collective. You were one of the first ones to get this NIL stuff rolling. And you are probably outside of Vanderbilt, which, their quarterback's probably getting a ton of money. Where you at ranking? When you rank on your team and your program, you're probably in the bottom 3 of the conference right now.
100%. So, and, this right here, what's the benefit of the legislative act giving Arkansas high school players early access to NIL if the U of A doesn't recruit in-state players? And here's the thing is they do recruit them. Players just choosing not to go here. So, that kind of, or like we're going to talk about, players get moved into the state. And then they get the NIL money. So I don't know.
Yeah. Oh, but we'll take a quick commercial break. After the break, we'll bring on Travis McClain, head coach of Mountain Vernon. He is also a co-host on the Quick Six podcast. So again, he made some very interesting comments. If for those who don't know, we'll set it up after the break. We're bringing him on. Had some really interesting comments about Sam Pittman and Arkansas and the state of NIL recruiting. Been really looking forward to having him on for the last week. So we'll take a break and then we'll have Travis on when I get the commercial pulled up. Searching for premium brewery products that will take your daily routine to the next level? Look no further than Sterling Soap Company. Our handmade soaps, aftershaves, and balms are made with only the finest ingredients that give you the ultimate grooming experience. With a variety of scents to choose from, there's something for everyone. Plus, our products are crafted in small batches to ensure the highest level of quality. So why wait? Visit www.sterlingsoap.com or visit our retail store at 16 West Walnut Street in Paris, Arkansas. Shop our collection and discover the difference for yourself. Upgrade your grooming routine with Sterling Soap Company. Are you looking for a place to grab a cold drink and some delicious food? Look no further than Arkansas Brewing Company. Located at 201 South 1st Street in beautiful downtown Ozark, our establishment offers a wide selection of craft beers and tasty eats. But what sets us apart is our welcoming atmosphere and friendly staff. At Arkansas Brewing Company, you'll always feel like part of the family. So visit Destiny and Christopher Brockett and staff today and see for yourself what makes us the go-to spot for locals and visitors alike. Arkansas Brewing Company, come for the drinks and stay for the friends. Attention DIYers and home improvement enthusiasts. Are you searching for the right tools and the supplies to tackle your next project? Look no further than Mentor's Hardware Store. With locations in Ozark, Alma, and Clarksville, our vast selection of hardware and building materials is sure to have everything you need, whether you're fixing a leaky faucet or building a new deck. Plus, our knowledgeable staff is always on hand to offer expert advice and guidance. And with our competitive prices and convenient online ordering, Mentor's Hardware Store is your one-stop shop for all your DIY needs. Visit us today and let's build something amazing together. Are you looking to take your career to the next level? Look no further than ATU Ozark Campus. As a 2-year satellite campus of Arkansas Tech University, we're dedicated to a quality workforce education, industry partnerships for in-demand jobs, and tailored paths for success. Our programs are led by industry professionals. Whether it's a certificate or you're aiming for a graduate degree, ATU Ozark has you covered. Visit our website at www.atu.edu/Ozark or contact us at 479-667-2117. Your future begins here. Welcome to Ozark Area Chamber of Commerce, where our mission is simple: encourage, promote, and aid an enduring environment of shared economic opportunity and civic development for the Ozark, Arkansas area. Whether you're a local business owner or a resident, we've got something for you. Shop our unique local businesses, explore the beauty of Ozark, and savor local flavors and find cozy accommodations. Join us in building a stronger community, and to learn more, contact us at 479-667-2525. Remember, together we thrive. And want to welcome you back to the Hog Talk podcast. We are joined now via the Meadows Lumber Hotline, Travis McClain of the Quick Six podcast, head coach of Mount Vernon High School. Travis, we'll really appreciate you for reaching out, man, and coming on the show.
Absolutely. I appreciate you guys having me.
So just cut to the chase, made some kind of interesting headlines in Razorback Nation with a recent episode you had. Haven't had a chance to listen to your podcast today about Arkansas, but did you expect it to have that kind of reaction, and what kind of led into that conversation of bringing that subject matter up when it comes to not just necessarily Arkansas per se, because we're going to get into this whole NIL and high school recruiting now, what we're getting to in states having, NIL abilities for high school players, but kind of just give us a background of what went into that conversation.
Really, the catalyst for it was just frustration. We hear about these things kind of at arm's length, just being in the profession and doing this as far as coaching high school for over a decade. And then this one hit a little closer to home just from locale and, my personal network. And I kind of got to the point where I was a little fed up, and then, there's a laundry list of things that I kind of feel like I need to share. And from the perspective of speaking to Arkansas football fans, but because it's not an isolated incident, as we all know, but it was really, having a very small platform of a, just for fun podcast where I kind of felt like my frustration reached a level, and I knew there might've been, a handful of people, a couple dozen people listening, where I could say, hey, this is crap, and I'm sick and tired of it. And to be honest, it was kind of 50-50. It was one of those things where, like, man, if the right person hears, there might be some momentum, but this could definitely be something that doesn't really take off like it did. So it was a pleasant surprise from that standpoint.
With listening to your frustration, because you could hear it in your voice, you could hear it in the story. I think one of the biggest things I took from it was towards the end of the clip, you talking about, how I, as a coach, going to let somebody like you come into our hallways in the future. Does this kind of put a bad taste in your mouth when it comes to other coaches? I mean, are you looking at these other college coaches as having ulterior motives in taking your players potentially away from you early?
100%. And to be completely honest, that was one of the reasons I wanted to share it. And I wanted to, a lot of times when high school coaches talk about these issues, they do it generically. Mm-hmm. Hey, a school in the SEC or a Division I program, right? They do it generically, and it's twofold, maybe even three. It's, I might still have aspirations to get to the college ranks, and I don't want to burn any bridges, or I got a kid coming up and I don't want to ruin his recruiting, or it's the general fear of, even if I want to leave here and crawl, climb the ladder one more step, that college coach might have a connection to a hiring committee somewhere else, and it could essentially blackball me. And I just felt like I was in a situation where I'm comfortable, I'm confident where I am. So those aren't as pressing of issues. And I kind of reached that boiling point where this is something that needs to be out there, and we don't need to be vague. We need to be specific, and we don't need to be afraid. I mean, I had a former teammate of mine that coaches here in Texas and said, hey, we got an Arkansas commit. Do I need to worry about this? And, I told him, I said, honestly, I don't know. Based off your location, I don't know. But what I do know is that if that's the only conversation that came out of it, it worked, because now it's on somebody's radar. Mm-hmm. And not just University of Arkansas, not just Fausch, not just Sam Pittman, but the specificity of, we know this is going on. We need to talk about it, and our network, our Texas High School Coaches Association network, needs to share these names to protect our own programs, our own state, and our own players.
And that leads, you kind of led into it of, another coach. And me and Adam were talking about it last week of, okay, they come in and entice, or however we want to word it, a kid to go from a Texas school, come to an Arkansas school, take him away from our program. He might have got that one, but I'm sure you coaches are in a very tight knit group, brotherhood type. You want to beat each other on the Friday that you're playing, but when it comes down to it, what are the chances now that coach can come into your hallway or another school in your district? I mean, look, we're talking about Texas football. There is a plethora of talent all over. So, the chances of this happening, it's getting out there. How much do you think that hurts the recruiting? Because we've seen another coach that used to coach at Arkansas say that Texas football players didn't fit his system, and we've seen what happened to him. Do you see a certain similar type of situation happening with this, if this in fact, goes down the way it is?
I don't want to say yes, but what I do want to say is that if this staff is going to continue to recruit the state of Texas, and specifically Northeast and East Texas, I want them to have to prove their respect for the program, the coaches, and their transparency with the coach as well. I don't want this to be this. My goal was not to say, well, I don't ever want these guys in our state again. That was not the goal. The goal was, if you're going to come dance in the yard, make sure it's the front yard and knock on the door first, because there's a ton of talent in this state. I talked to a reporter a few days ago that said Texas high school football players have been the foundation for Arkansas football for a long time. Mm-hmm. And they're not the only out-of-state school that's like that. You look at OU, Oklahoma State, there's others. But if we're going to continue to operate that way, and I want the University of Arkansas to continue to have that, because it's only better for our state, but I want it to be done respectfully and transparently. And I know that's kind of dodging your question, and I don't mean to, but I don't want this to be a blackball situation by any means. I don't have the power to do that. I felt like somebody needed to stand up for us, the high school coaches, the ADs, and that was my main goal.
What kind of conversations are you having with your players, and are you doing it as, a group, or is it something that more isolated conversations with the players that have more opportunities out there for them? I mean, whether it's forewarning them or just to be open and honest with y'all, or, or any type of those conversations going on.
So, right now the conversations are more because of when I got to Mount Vernon and getting that 26 class kind of into our system and updating their recruiting. They're more informal, but as we move into August, we'll have a team meeting, we'll have a parent meeting, and both of those will address recruitment and conversations and things of that nature. One of the number one questions you get from your younger kids coming up, going to be freshmen, sophomores, is, hey, I got contacted by this recruiting service. And that used to be the big issue, right? Mm-hmm. Like the recruiting service. Oh, you're going to pay your $2,400. You're going to get your 3, Division II out of state or NAIA offers that are uncommittable and they don't matter, but now you've justified your payment, right? Those used to be the primary conversations. Now we've had to add we know NIL is going to be a big part of this. And if you're a player that's going to have those conversations, let's go school first, money second, mm-hmm. right? And set that up, because and it's not an ego thing. And I think a lot of people think it's an ego thing. I'm not wanting those conversations to run through me because I want to be the one that said, no, it's the kid's decision. What I want is to make sure that I can look somebody in the eye and confirm that you're in it for the best interest of the kid. You're going to take care of this kid. And this is we're not doing a 9-month recruitment. We're doing a 4 or 5 year recruitment, because I think a lot of high school coaches still aim to produce the placement of development and things of that nature. And it's obviously a lot harder in the current state.
When did, coaches and programs in Texas really start seeing, all of this, and not just this instance per se, but really people coming into Texas and doing, because you said it's happening in other states or other places, when did this really start being where it was an issue where other programs, other schools, because again, where you're located at in Texas, I mean, it's the king of football, and there's a lot of talent there. So people think, well, I can just go down there and get a couple kids they won't know. But like the school you're at, being a 4A school, it's like you're not like the big schools in Texas where you have 4 D1 kids or 5, 6 D1 kids, So when did you realize, okay, this is kind of becoming an issue?
It's really been two-phase. The growth and prominence of the prep school, boarding school path, which I think was like, it really started to pick up momentum like 2014, 15, 16. That was really wave one. You started getting these coaches that came in and said, hey, you're going to come down here, all expenses paid. It's football, it's college prep education. You've got, access to tutors. Look at all this elite level, recovery and training and nutrition. And they started handpicking, and even then the state was able to hold on to those 4 and 5 stars, and you only saw them 1, maybe 2 a year. And then phase 2 came with the NIL, because the Texas High School Coaches Association, it works hand in hand with our legislature, with the Texas House and the Senate, and they go to bat for us. And one of the big battles that they've been fighting is, it's not that we don't have NIL, and it's not that the association and the coaches don't want it. We want it done in a way that parallels this transparency, to where it's taking care of the kid, it's done the right way. And that kind of, I don't want to ramble too much, but that kind of leads into one thing I want to make sure I said, was that, from an NCAA, UIL, state of Arkansas high school standpoint, everything that I said allegedly happened is not against the rules, right? Relocate, when you cross state lines, it's very blurry. When you leave Texas to go to another state, it's very blurry, and it's pretty easy to get your eligibility. When you come in from another state, we tend to do a little bit more fact check and, home visit, things of that nature, to make sure that, this kid didn't just move to this public school for athletic purposes. But going out, not every state has the same management style structure. And so moving wasn't the issue. Paying wasn't the issue. It's the moral issue. It's the burning of the bridge. It's the back door. It's the lying. Those are the issues. That needed to be the main focus of what I was trying to bring up.
I don't know if there's, a number to throw out there. Obviously I'm not one to throw out names of coaches, schools, whatever, but right now, if there is a number that you can go, like, how do you gauge how many are out there right now in your back door, or schools that you know of, or have any other coaches expressed the same issue that you've talked to? Like, kind of, I guess, expand our horizons on how much of this is truly going on.
More than you think. They don't win as many of the conversations here as they probably do in other states. But I do know, especially with my co-host on the Quick Six, one of my best friends in coaching, he was in a private school in Nashville, and their whole they had gone up a division, and their whole conference essentially was boarding schools. They're flying kids in from Canada to go to the boarding school to play for them so they can get Power 4 offers. Right? There's a school that was in their conference that 80% of the roster was from the state of Florida. It's happening nonstop. And like I said, I think the state of Texas does a better job than a lot of other states because of our structure and the association and the expectation of high school coaches of holding on to those kids. But, we talked about in our newest episode that, like, this isn't an isolated incident. SMU, I immediately was contacted after our last episode. Hey, a few years ago, SMU did this. Jamie Franklin up in Penn State did it, right? It's boom, boom, boom. It's, hey, I'm giving you this. I'm looking out for you. This is my 2 cents best interest. When in reality, you're trying to get the kid out of his comfort zone by his commitment, so he does what you want. And it's just grimy.
And kind of switching gears a little bit, me and Adam were talking about the NBA draft, and it kind of ties into it. But we've seen a NBA player get drafted, but did not love. I mean, it's well known. Did not agree with where he was being drafted. And it goes back to this NIL in high school. Travel ball, kids are switching up travel ball teams every year. Then you go to high school and you can go to different high schools. Then you get to college and then you can go. Then when they get to big boy ball, the pros, and you're held to a contract, now they're still so do you think, when you're talking about protecting the kids, do you think that not having the NIL in high school and doing these things, do you think that that is a very good thing and a lot more kids should be doing that, because now it's teaching them no matter what, you can just go somewhere else. And then you get to the pros, it's not like that anymore.
I think the NIL at the collegiate level, which the trickle down effect is, I think, is almost immediate. I think the NIL at the collegiate level is the NCAA saying, you guys complained about our management style for decades. So guess what? It's a Wild West. Here you go. So it's going to get worse before it gets better. And for it to get better, there has to be, these have to start to be structured like NFL contracts. There needs to be fines. There needs to be penalties for leaving early, transferring. There should be a payback process. All of those things that occur at the whole point is, hey, we work really hard. We should be treated like professional athletes, et cetera, et cetera. Cool. You want a multi-year NIL deal? Awesome. Here's the penalty if you transfer out before that runs out. Not just you don't get paid, but you're going to have to pay some back, right? Now we're getting into multi-year contracts. Now we're doing this. And there's a void of contract if the coach leaves, right? If the recruiting coordinator leaves, et cetera, all of those things. But until you start to put pieces like that in place, it's not going to matter. I mean, George Kittle just mentioned on Bussin' with the Boys how when they were at Niners camp, there was, they had an undrafted rookie that came in and they do their like quote unquote rookie show, name, college, signing bonus. And this kid stood up there, said, so-and-so signing bonus, $30,000. Well, now they're making them say they're NIL. And this kid made $700,000 his senior year in NIL money, but he signed with an NFL franchise for $30,000, right? So the disparity that's got to get worked out is still a major work in progress.
And so what are your thoughts now with the revenue sharing? And do you think it's a step in the right direction? Do you think this is, it got out of hand too quickly and they're just trying to put a Band-Aid on this? What's your gauge on the whole revenue sharing?
I think the revenue sharing is great because you can't earn if you don't play. And you can't, from my understanding, you can't earn if you don't play. And you can't get paid fully if you don't stay. Right. So it's essentially, profits earned, not profits given ahead of earnings. And so I think that that's a step in the right direction, but you're going to have to put in place a salary cap, which balances the NIL with the revenue sharing. You're going to have to put these things on a budget, or you're going to end up with the New York Yankees versus the Oakland A's, right? Which I think Ohio State proved that that's the trajectory we're on anyway.
Yeah. Well, I mean, again, we really appreciate you coming on and talking to us about this. And again, when we seen your podcast and really, heard, like Adam said, we could hear the frustration in your voice and really wanted to reach out and get you on to talk to the Arkansas audience. And not really, like you said, it's not an isolated incident. It's not a Arkansas thing. It's happening everywhere. So especially with the new age and the revenue sharing, want to shed some light on, from a high school level, what's happening. But we really appreciate you coming on. But tell everybody where we can find your podcast link. We'll drop a link in our comment section where everybody can find you.
Absolutely. I appreciate it. So the Quick Six, we're on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. We try and do an episode every week. Both of us are full-time coaches in some capacity. So, it gets a little hairy in the season or over breaks. But the biggest thing that we want to do is, Trent and I have been doing this for over a decade now. And in the coaching world, it's just a really great place for us to share, hey, this is where I screwed up. This is where I got it right. Also, parents, this is what you need to keep your head on a swivel for. This is what you need to be reinvigorating your kids with. And young coaches, here's something you can learn from our mistakes so you don't make the same ones. Well,
again, appreciate your time for coming on. Best of luck to you this year down in Texas football. There's a guy I follow. He is at Forney, and he's always done the day in the life of a Texas high school football coach, and so he's actually from South Carolina, where my dad's from. So I love watching those things that really come into what it's like to be a high school coach. So we know y'all's work, y'all have it cut out for y'all, and especially with everything going on. So best of luck to you this year.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
Well, that was Travis McClain, head coach of Mount Vernon, co-host of the Quick Sick podcast. Again, check out the episode. We'll drop the links in our comments. Very interesting comments that he had. But it is going to be a wild, wild west. And it's going to, like he said, get worse before it gets better. But it really touches home for Arkansas, because you don't know when the dust settles, when all this plays out, where is Arkansas going to be? Is it going to be one of them situations where the old Southwest Conference days, when you had to join the SEC because you didn't know what was going to happen to your program, and you be one of these conference jumpers and never really find your place? So we'll see what happens. But, Arkansas in a hole, I mean, they're going to have to step up, and you hear things like this that's going on everywhere. Yes, it's legal, but when you use a lot of your, recruiting in the state of Texas, and you are getting the message out like this, you're going to have to go down there and prove that, hey, look, we really want your kids to come be a part of our program and do things the right way.
Yeah, I mean, I think right now it's a matter of, as a college coach, there's not a whole lot of trust in you to a lot of these coaches who are seeing these kids day in and day out. So you burn that bridge, you kill that trust. It's going to make it more and more difficult for you to go into these hallways, like we mentioned, go into these homes. These coaches are, like I said, with their players, with these kids, day in and day out. They're in their ear for the right reasons, and they're not going to steer them in towards something that, number one, is detrimental to the player, but then detrimental to their program, as well. So it's a slippery slope and it's an ugly side that we don't like to see, but at the same time, it needs to be talked about. If these things are going on, it needs to be talked about. It needs to be brought to light, because for far too long, things like this just get swept under the rug.
Yeah. And that's the thing. And a biggest point is the fact that the kid, for the most part, sees money. They see apartments. They see a lot of these kids that are talented. They come from homes that might not have, they can't go to the boarding schools. They can't go to the IMGs. They can't go to Don Bosco. You can't go to these big schools. So if you're getting offered these outside things, and we're going to do it, you're going to jump at the opportunity, because your parents do for you, but your goal is, other than take care of your wife or your kids, you want to take care of your parents. And they see a sunlight of, man, I can go here, get my parents a place, and then I know I'm going to make it big and then be able to take care of them. I mean, you can't help but, like I said, blame them for doing that. So yeah, very good conversation. Again, we'll clip this up, post this a part of the podcast afterwards. But Adam, you got anything else?
No, I shared the links from my Facebook, but then also I'm putting it in there from Hog Talk so quick access to both shows. The main one that we talked about today, then the one from earlier today.
All right. Well, that will do it for this episode of Hog Talk Podcast. Again, thank you everybody for joining our sponsors. We will catch you on Thursday at 6:05.